We're nearing the end of the fall seasons. A couple of senior nights took place and the first of the A10 championships. Let's see how our teams fared. I'm Dan Ward and this is Mason Sports Insider. Starting this week off, we have the women's soccer team who wrapped up their regular season schedule. After two impressive wins at VCU and at GW, Mason traveled up to Philly to take on the LaSalle Explorers in their final road game of the season. After having to play in terrible weather and less than ideal conditions, we like to consider this game a phantom game, just kind of throw the outcome out the window. Mason lost 4-0, but the team didn't worry about it, and they instead looked ahead to their final game of the regular season, a home matchup against the Fordham Rams. It was senior day at Mason Stadium. Seniors Kirsten Glad, Sarah Hardison, Nikki Hertigan, Alex Myers, Anna Ludwig, Gabby Cook, Brenna Connell, and Kylie Schultz were honored before the game as they played in their final home game as a Patriot. The usual starters were sent out there to begin the game, and after battling back and forth to start, junior Abby Downey took advantage of a poor clearing attempt by the Rams and fired home a goal from 35 yards out to give the Patriots the 1-0 lead. Mason carried the lead into halftime, but then the Rams found the equalizer in the 56th minute when sophomore Brooke Salmon scored her team-leading 5th goal of the season. Fordham had not allowed more than one goal in conference play this year, so the Patriots had a battle ahead of them. They were ready, though, and broke that trend in the 70th minute when Alex Myers scored her 5th goal of the season off a pass from Erin Mitchell, and the Patriots went back up 2-1. But with less than 5 minutes left in regulation, the Rams capitalized on a spacious Mason defense and tied the game up at 2 apiece. The game required overtime, and even though the Patriots dominated the overtime periods, they could not find the back of the net, and they would end their regular season with their first tie of the season. They finished the season, therefore, with a 6-3-1 conference record and an overall record of 12-6-1. The Patriots finished as the 4th seed in the conference. It turns out that it didn't really matter how the game finished. If they had won, they still would have been the 4th seed, but a loss to Fordham, then they just would have dropped to the 5th seed, still would have been playing the same team. They tied Fordham in the conference with 19 points, but they hold the tiebreaker thanks to the better results against common conference opponents. So, with that, let's take a look at the final A10 standings and talk a little bit about the upcoming A10 tournament that's taking place this week. We see that St. Joe's wins the regular season title, going undefeated at 9-0-1 in conference play. St. Louis is right there at number 2, and the defending tournament champions, the Duquesne Dukes, are just behind the Billikens in the 3rd seed. Rhode Island, meanwhile, snuck in as the 8th seed, winning the tiebreakers over Richmond and VCU, so the tournament representative will be present this weekend. The tournament begins this Thursday with St. Louis and Dayton getting the first game at 11 a.m. Mason, meanwhile, will play the last game on Thursday at 8 p.m. If they win, they will play the winner of the St. Joe's and Rhode Island game on Friday at 7:30, and then the championship game will be on Sunday at 12 p.m. and will be broadcasted live on the American Sports Network. So 4 spots improved from last season. The Patriots have had a tremendous year. Thursday will be very interesting because they will once again be playing the Fordham Rams, the team that they just tied on Sunday. The two teams know each other very well, so it should be a fun game. Last year, though, the Rams were the team that knocked out the Patriots in the semifinals because of penalty kicks. So the Patriots will be looking for revenge on Thursday. Got them last year. Patriots turn to take them down this year. You can watch the games online on the A10 network at Atlantic10.com. Go over there and continue to make Mason proud, ladies. Best of luck, women's soccer. But now we turn our attention to the men's soccer team. They only had the one road game this week. They're up in Rhode Island taking on the Rams. This game was a first half game in which sloppy, aggressive play hurt the Patriots. In the 11th minute, they fouled a Rams player inside the box, resulting in a penalty kick and a goal to give the Rams the early 1-0 lead. They added 2 more goals in the halftime period, both from Dominic Richter, one on an impressive low shot from the corner, and the other, once again, coming from a penalty kick. Mason went into halftime down 3-0, but came out with a lot of energy in the second half and scored just 63 seconds in thanks to Colin Kemmerer's first goal of the season. But you know the story of Mason men's soccer. 1 goal is about all that they can get in a game, and that was the case in this one as well. They fell to the Rams 3-1, knocking them down to 0-6-1 in the conference, giving them just one more chance to find that illustrious first conference win. One other thing that did happen in that game was an ejection to senior Daniel Hoffman, who picked up a red card in the 84th minute of the game. This ejection means he will be suspended 1 game by rule of the NCAA, so he will be unable to play on senior night this Saturday. His final game as a Patriot is therefore a 3-1 loss on the road against Rhode Island. So once again, the team's final chance to win a conference game is this Saturday night, where it will be senior night. The game is against the Davidson Wildcats and starts at 7 p.m. Maybe they can pick it up. The women's volleyball team picked up a victory on their senior night, so hopefully the men's soccer team can follow their lead. So now let's talk about that women's volleyball team. I spoiled it a little bit by telling you that they did win on senior night, but how did they do before that? Their senior night was the second of 2 matches played this past weekend. Their first was on Friday night against the playoff-bound Duquesne Dukes. The Patriots came into the game still looking for its first conference win of the season. They opened up the first set strong, going on a 5-2 run, but the Dukes battled back to take a 7-6 lead, thanks in large part to Madeline Burnham. The largest lead of the set was only 3 at any point, and the 2 teams were all tied up at 20, looking to race to 25. It would be Mason, though, who showed stronger nerves, and they finished the set with Tiffany Clark picking up her 6th kill of the night. The second set saw Duquesne go on an early run before the 2 teams battled close once again to 16-15 Duquesne. But then the Dukes took control and gave up only 2 points the rest of the way. Burnham closed the set with back-to-back kills to win the set 25-17 and tie the match 1-1. Then coming out of intermission, it looked like Mason found new life. They completely dominated the third set, first by opening up on a 7-1 run and then winning the set 25-12. But for whatever reason, Mason lost its momentum again after winning a set and allowed Duquesne to come back. At 13-7 in the fourth, Jackie Simpson-Kerr was forced to call a timeout, but the Dukes never let the Patriots catch up. The Patriots got to within 2 on multiple occasions, but ultimately dropped the set 25-18, forcing a 5th set. Mason committed consecutive errors to have the score be tied at 2, but then they hit the gas and went on a commanding 7-1 run on the service games of Caitlin Hipsher and Jordan Glass. At a score of 14-6, you could feel the Patriots coming away with their first conference win, and they did just that.
Coming from the entire rack, and the Patriots win it! The Patriots win their first conference game of the season!
The Patriots avenged their 5-set loss to the Dukes on senior night from a year ago and win their first conference game of the season. Tiffany Clark led the way, tying a career high in kills with 23, while Jordan Glass had a career high in blocks, and Williams and Espinoza continued to lead the defensive effort with 44 digs between the 2 of them. So it took 10 conference games, but the volleyball team finally got in the win column. This allowed them to relax and enjoy senior night a little bit more, which took place the very next day against the LaSalle Explorers. This was an even more exciting 5-set thriller than the night before, with the total difference in points being only 13 points. Despite it being senior night, it was the freshman Bailey Williams who stole the spotlight in this game. She led the team with 13 kills and a career-high 27 digs. Mason carried its momentum from the night before into the first set, opening up an 11-6 lead. They continued their attack to 19-13, but then took their foot off the gas and allowed LaSalle back into it. Mason had 3 set points at 25-24, 26-25, and 28-27, but could not capitalize on any of them. They would ultimately drop the first set to LaSalle 30-28. The Explorers used this momentum to open up an 11-7 lead in the second, before the Patriots ultimately fought back to take the second set 25-23. The third set was more of the same, with the 2 teams battling back and forth and keeping it close, but Mason would once again win the set 25-23. But the fourth set was not Mason's friend for the second straight night. The Explorers opened up a 15-7 lead and looked like they were going to cruise to victory. Then Mason went on a 12-2 run of their own to get back in the set. The long and mentally and physically exhausting fourth set was ultimately won by LaSalle 25-22 to force a 5th set. Mason opened up with a 6-2 lead just to see it disappear to a 1-point 6-5 lead. Then it opened up a lead at 11-8 and never looked back. Back-to-back kills by Jesse Greenslade, followed by a solid side-out performance from the team, led them to their second straight 5-set victory after winning the 5th 15-11. The team finished with a very impressive .353 hitting percentage in the 5th and a 2.19 performance in the game. It took a little while, but the team finally got 2 well-deserved victories. The seniors were sent off in style, and all 3 of them, Tiffany Clark, Jessie Greenslade, and Caitlin Hipsher, played very well in their final home game. Bailey Williams shined bright once again in the LaSalle game, and the team is actually out of the cellar with the 2 wins. LaSalle, who they just beat, still only has 1 win with 3 games to go. Unfortunately, senior night was the last chance you had to see the team this year. They end the season on a 3-game road trip with games at Fordham and Rhode Island this week, and then at George Washington next week. So they're done for the home season, but we thank you very much, women's volleyball team, for the fun home games. It was a roller coaster of a season, but it was still a lot of fun. Congrats on the great wins this past week, and let's finish the season strong. A pair of top 10 individual finishes paced the way for the George Mason men's and women's cross country teams at the A10 championships this past weekend. Sophomore Sierra Donahue finished 8th for the women, and junior Logan Miller placed 10th for the men to finish with Atlantic 10 all-conference honors on Saturday at Pole Green Park. The men finished with a 4th place finish, and the women finished in 11th. This is a 1-spot improvement for the men's team from last year, with Dayton taking home the championship. Meanwhile, on the women's side, they equaled their position from last year, and the Richmond Spiders won the A10 championships for the 2nd straight year. Grayson Morgan and Amber Hawkins just missed out on the all-conference honors, finishing in 16th place. When talking about the men's performance, head coach Andrew Gerard was generally pleased and felt that they executed their run well, improved on some things from last year, but Dayton simply was fantastic. For the women's side, the A10 is simply very deep, and he knows that the improved placing will definitely occur if they continue to have success like they did this past week and continue to improve on their runs week in, week out, in, year out. The 2 teams will be back in action November 14th at the NCAA Southeast Regional Championships hosted by the University of Virginia. The women will run a 6K race and the men will run a 10K. But that'll do it for this week's episode of Mason Sports Insider as far as the updates go. Now let's take a look at this week's upcoming schedule. On the road, the women's soccer team heads to the A10 tournament as the 4th seed, taking on the Fordham Rams at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock start for the women's soccer team. Meanwhile, volleyball will begin to wrap up its season on the road. They'll take on the Fordham Rams Friday at 12, and then Saturday they will be at Rhode Island for a 7 o'clock night matchup. Then, as far as home stuff goes, the swimming and diving team will host Northeastern and Towson. Rowing will host the head of the Occoquan Challenge this week, and the men's soccer team will play their final game of the season at home against Davidson at 7 p.m. And once again, it is senior night. So be sure to come on out and cheer on the men's soccer team that night. If you can't come out, you can always watch the games on Mason Cable Network Channel 8.1 and streaming live online on the A10 network. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Mason Sports Insider. Hope you enjoyed as always. If you liked what you saw, then be sure to leave a comment praising us. Thank you very much. Or you can reach out to me personally on Twitter and we can talk Mason athletics or just talk sports in general, whatever it really is that you want. But until next time, I am Dan Ward saying so long, God bless, and go Patriots.